Hello everyone, it is week 6, so hello Dr. Palmer, hello Dr. Akron, hello Stephanie if you're here. I am week 2 without my computer, and so again I apologize, it is what it is, but I will be recording today off of my phone and without PowerPoint because of the fact that my computer is broken and it is not essential, as I am in Queens in New York and they won't deliver. So I apologize, but I thank you for this opportunity to dive into Daph's textbook even further as we explore chapters 12 and 13. And this week again, my imaginary PowerPoint here, we do explore and we do start with chapter 12. And the question that you posed for this week was, what is the major difference between transformational leadership and transactional leadership? And so when we look at these two items, it's important to know that there is a difference. And really, transformational leadership comes, or I would argue that it falls under transactional leadership. When we look at the definition for, again, transactional leadership, we see that it's an exchange process between leaders and followers. And of course, when we're in a leadership role in an organization, this is certainly what we want to have happen. And this does lead, this transactional leadership leads to changes in the organization's vision, strategy, its culture, and it's really innovative, so to speak. Now, when we talk about transformational, this takes it really, in my opinion, to the next level, where it gives you the ability to bring around significant change in leadership and in followers. And when we talk more specifically about transformational leadership, what we need to know is that it really does do a few things. And I have 4 things that I wanted to highlight and showcase, which are actually found on pages 362 and 363 of the Leadership Experience. So first, transformational leadership. It, number 1, paints a really good vision of what an organization hopes, strives for, hopes to achieve. Number 2, it improves, or it actually lets followers go beyond their own self-interest. And so it really, when you're looking at transformational leadership, you're looking for empowering your followers and empowering your followers to do so much more. It also, when we look at transformational leadership, it elevates concerns of the followers. And so in this day and age, there are so many organizations that I personally think fall apart because they don't take on that human resource framework that was part of our discussion board this week. And they don't really focus on the followers or the human resources, the people of the organization. But in transformational leadership, you actually have this ability to do so much more and to really listen to the followers and have them play a critical role. So again, transactional, it's a deal, right? It's a transaction between leader and follower. But transformational leadership, again, is so much more. So it finally then develops followers into leaders. So those are really the answers that I have for transformational leadership versus transactional leadership. Now, the second part of this question was to really talk a little bit more about the differences between charismatic leadership and transformational leadership. And I think it's important to first say that these are, or charismatic leadership is, in my opinion, again, a transformational leadership strategy. In the textbook, it actually says that it is a fire. Charismatic leadership is a fire that ignites followers. And there's an emotional impact in charismatic leadership. And it really entices and encourages and empowers followers to go beyond the call of duty. And what I loved in the textbook, or what I particularly like about this textbook, that it's always providing specific examples to make the concepts more relatable and more understandable, I believe, to the viewers. And so when they talk about charismatic leadership in our textbook, they provide 2 examples. And the first one that they very briefly allude to is Steve Jobs and Apple. And of course, he was passionate about his company, and because of that passion and his interest in Apple, he believes so much in that product that his leadership was characterized as charismatic. And when we look at the second example, we look to the Virgin Group, and Virgin Atlantic is a aircraft carrier, which is not flying really right now, as most everybody isn't flying right now, but it's led by Richard Branson. And for those who know Richard Branson, he is very charismatic, very passionate, but it's also because of his interest in the airline industry, his interest in flying, his interest in space travel. Richard Branson is a charismatic leader. And so when we talk once again about that, there's this emotional connection that leaders have, not only with their constituents, but with their product, with their brand, with their company, with their mission, and with their vision. So that summarizes chapter 12. And for chapter 13, again, here's my fancy PowerPoint. Thanks for playing along. We have, what do you think you're better at? And the question was strategic vision or strategic action. Now we know that vision quite often, right, precedes and comes before action. And we also know that in order for something to be really successful, we have to have a vision, but we also, more importantly, have to act upon that vision. So quite often you'll hear people like, oh, I wish I could start my online business, or, oh, I have this great idea for a new company. And without implementation and without action, nothing is going to get achieved. Alternatively, you have folks who can work really hard, they're given a task, but if they don't have a vision, they're just going to do work, and they're going to work hard, but they're not going to have the ability to creatively create and take on this entrepreneurship characteristic, so to speak. So what I really like about DAFT is page 396. And I really appreciated the saying, and as described in DAFT, it is acknowledged as an old churchyard saying. Life without vision is drudgery. Okay, so if you have no vision, or if you have no life without vision, there really isn't much to life now, is there? So life without vision is drudgery. Vision without action is just an empty dream. And action guided by vision is joy and the hope of the earth. And I thought about what we're all going through today and yesterday and tomorrow. And when I look at leadership right now, and again, never intending to get political, but here in New York City, we have a few leaders. We have the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, and we have the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. And prior to the coronavirus, I honestly didn't really understand Andrew Cuomo and his roles and his responsibilities. He was very quiet, at least downstate here in New York City. And the only thing I really knew about him, actually there were two things. Number one, his dad, Andrew Cuomo, was the governor for New York for forever, and that he basically inherited his father's position. And number two, about 7 months ago, a lot of people who are not in New York do not know this, but he was pitching a campaign for a new license plate in New York City. And what's really funny, and why people don't know this, is he pitched 5 different license plate options, and all of them had the Statue of Liberty on them with the exception of one. I don't know if it was the Verrazano Bridge or which bridge he had renamed for his father, but there is a Cuomo Bridge somewhere here in New York, and it's a big bridge. It's like the Verrazano Bridge. It's not the Brooklyn Bridge, it's not the Manhattan Bridge, but a big bridge here he renamed. And New Yorkers don't go with the new names. We call them by their old names, the Triborough Bridge and the Midtown Tunnel. So we don't really pay much mind. But what was funny about this license plate thing is that he had 4 of them, again with the Statue of Liberty, and 1 with the Cuomo Bridge. And so, again, it's very strategic. But by dividing the vote between 4 Statue of Liberty choices and the Cuomo Bridge, many people thought that naturally that would win. So prior to COVID-19, we knew nothing about him. Coming back to chapter 13, not only does he have a vision, but he has a plan, and he is acting upon his vision and his plan to get New York City and New York, the entire state of New York, out of quarantine and into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 of moving forward and hopefully opening businesses again. Phase 1 starting in May 15th, phase 2 starting 2 weeks after, to have the ability to assess and to reassess and to really activate a strong action plan. So again, so relevant when you read about this and you can apply it to everyday life. And again, a year ago, I had totally different examples, but this is very real. And what I really like, and I apologize for, again, the paper, and I hope you can see this, is the chart that I made, which again is in chapter 13 of DAFT. And they talk about elevated levels of vision and elevated levels of action. So what I like about this chart is if you have low vision and low action, you are just uninvolved. You're not an active participant in anything really. You're just existing. But however, if you have high vision, okay, you have high goals, high dreams, high aspirations, but low action, okay, again, as described previously, you're a dreamer. You have all these great ideas, but you don't act upon them. Alternatively speaking, if you have low vision, but you have high action, again, this is a great example of somebody who's just a workhorse and just does work, and they're the doer, and they do everything. Optimally speaking, what you want is to have an individual who has a high elevated vision as well as a high elevated action, which really leads to the most effective, or the best leader out there, which is an effective leader. So going back to the question, what do you think you're better at? Strategic vision or strategic action? Me personally, strategic vision, I have all these ideas. Do I act on them and lead? Does it lead to action and results? Absolutely. I see that more professionally, and when I think of being a dreamer, I think more of personal things. Although I've been really successful in starting a photography, a side photography business, for example, implementing the dream but taking it to action to actually get clients. But again, it's a really tough question. And I think professionally speaking, I am strategically taking action to make sure and to implement all the visions that are set before me in my job, my corporation, my job responsibilities and such. And you really, in all honesty, you have to be active. You have to have that, be strategically active and have that action, especially if you have slated goals and responsibilities. And again, even if you don't have high vision, but you're highly active, you are the doer and you can do what your leaders want you to do. So thank you for tuning in. I will send this link now. I apologize for, again, not having a fancy PowerPoint. Thank you for bearing with me. Stay safe, stay well, stay healthy, and thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.